Hello, everyone. Welcome to our C-PACE webinar for contractors. We're thrilled to have you all here today and hope that you are all doing well on this gray Anchorage day. We hope to make this as engaging of a session as we possibly can. So please feel free to speak up and ask your questions live or type them into the chat box as we go along. Make sure that this is all clear. This timing is for you, and we want to make sure that we address all the possible questions that you might have. We are recording this session so that anyone who cannot attend today will be able to rewatch it and ask their questions. And I encourage all of you to enter in the chat box who you are, your contact information, what type of services you provide, so that we have a sense of who you all are and connecting folks across the Anchorage municipality with all of your different specialties. Welcome again. We have three presenters today, myself, Melanie Lucas Conwell with the 49 State Angel Fund, Sharon Lane, who is in the CFO's office for the municipality, and Shana Kilcoyne with Solid Waste Services. The three of us have been leading the C-PACE program for Anchorage. It's been a lot of fun since we first launched on April 1st, and we've gotten a lot of requests, many projects in the pipeline that we hope we can connect you all to today. So when it comes to our goals for this session and how we hope to spend your time wisely, we'd like it to make sure that you know about the program so that when people come with questions asking you about them, that you're able to talk about it. Answering any of your questions, either in the chat box or feel free to raise your Zoom hand and ask question lives, or unmute yourself and ask them. We also encourage you to put your video on if you're comfortable with it so that it feels like we're talking to more than just a category of black screens and names on there. And then finally, we want to make sure that for those of you who find that it's a good fit for your business, that you're able to register as a C-PACE contractor for Anchorage. So let's get kicked off with what is C-PACE? A strange acronym, but it does its purpose. It stands for Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy. And it's a special assessment-based financing mechanism specifically for commercial property owners and developers aimed at funding energy efficiency, renewable energy, and water conservation projects. Why on earth is it special? Why do we even care about it? Alaska C-PACE was started by a Alaska statewide legislature statute and has been allowed for different municipalities to enact it. Anchorage is the first one to do so in our great state of Alaska. And we launched on April 1st for those that didn't get the word about it. And we hope that other municipalities and boroughs will also come on board soon. Why we like it so much is that there are no upfront project costs. So any barriers about being able to finance different projects in the energy efficiency and renewable energy space can be costly. So this makes it a lot easier to have a loan that includes engineering, permitting, and other financing coverages by this type of loan. The second one is that it's a long-term fixed rate, non-recourse financing. Per the statute, it has to be a fixed rate. The fixed rate, we often get asked what the range is. It's determined by third-party private capital lenders. So we, the municipality, are not establishing what those interest rates might be. Long-term, the loans can be for up to 20 years or the life of the project. So with no upfront costs, it makes it a lot cheaper to be able to have those long-term fixed rates, since we know that energy projects can be costly. The C-PACE is a lien on the property. So it is senior to any other debt, subordinate to any taxes and payments that are made on the property. It is tied to the property itself rather than the owners of it. So when a property owner is to sell the property, it will be transferred. So there is less risk, especially if an owner is only planning on having the property for 10 years or so. It will be transferred to the next property owner once that commercial property is sold. It is a priority lien, as I mentioned, so similar to any other tax assessment, and it is senior to any mortgage that the property owner might still have active on the property. Because of the improvements that are being made that we hope that all of you today will be helping install and manage, we hope that the property value will increase thanks to those energy efficient and renewable energy improvements that are being made to these properties. And I'll note that these are all retrofit programs. There's no new build here. So talking about the value of these properties will only increase from the improvements that are being made thanks to the C-PACE financing. And finally, the number one requirement for this program to work is that the project must pencil out. So what that means is, with the first item on the list for a property owner is to get an energy audit. They will calculate the expected energy savings from any improvements that they can make. Those energy savings will be how the loans, the C-PACE loans, are repaid over time. And that's why we require to have that energy audit, so that there is a baseline that is understood by all to be able to see what those energy savings will be. Now, why should you all even care? Clearly, you had some interest by being here today and signing up for an hour of your time, or however much time you will allow us today. The three main benefits that we think this program will bring for all of you is that it will provide immediate and secure project financing for the services. So there is no down payment, as I mentioned previously, for the property owners that are looking to make these improvements. The second one is that it avoids using the property owner's own credit line to fund these projects. So as we mentioned, it is tied to the property itself rather than the owners. So that should de-risk it for the property owner, really reduce barriers to be able to make these improvements on their properties that they might have been holding off on because of COVID-19, limited funds, you name it. And finally, because of these benefits, we hope that there will be a lot more projects that get unlocked, either maintenance or upgrade-wise, because of the previous two benefits. So hopefully at the end of the day, this will mean more business for all of you and more customers coming to you, since we hope that you will help us all market the C-PACE program, especially if a property owner is coming to you, or that you want to be able to drum up this new offering thanks to being here today on this webinar. We've had one of our capital providers, PACE Loan Group, that we have worked with. They're a nationwide capital provider that specializes in PACE loans, as their name says. Once they were approved and reviewed the program handbook, they posted on all of their social media that spiffy little badge that they were a registered capital provider to announce to the world that they were open for C-PACE Anchorage business, which we were very excited to see. And we'll talk a little bit more later about how you can get your own little graphic that says registered contractor for the Anchorage C-PACE program. We don't expect all of you to be able to talk about C-PACE in great length with property owners, but by knowing the top level information about the program and being able to give them the Cliff Notes, property owners, the Cliff Notes, or clients generally speaking, directing them to our C-PACE website to find information such as the flyer that you see here, C-PACE for property owners. That will give them a few more details about why they might be interested in the program itself. And the three of us will be very happy to answer any questions from all of you, from any future property owners or capital providers for that matter. So with that, I'll hand it over to Shayna.
Hi there. My background is in energy, so I'm going to talk more about the technical aspects of C-PACE. And first, I'm going to start with the 3 Ps of eligibility. First is is the project. So the installation or the modification of permanent improvements that are intended to reduce energy consumption, energy demand, or emissions that affect local air quality. And this could include products that generate energy or save energy, that provide thermal energy or regulate temperature. There's really kind of a broad range of opportunities here. And when we say permanent, we mean eligible improvements that can't be easily removed and remain with the property during the term of the C-PACE financing. And so things like shading devices and lamps are not going to be included in C-PACE. We, like Melanie said, we require a savings to investment ratio. So over the life of the assessment, the projected energy savings to the property owner must be greater than the financed project. And a waiver is possible on this, so you can keep that in mind, but really we're looking for a savings to investment ratio of at least 1 over the life of the project. We can come back to that if there are questions. The maximum financing amount may not exceed 20% of the assessed value of the property at the time of program application. And note that that is assessed value and not appraised value. Again, here there's a possible waiver that could go up to 50% of the assessed value of the property. And again, that's at the time of the application. And then the property, and I'm going to kind of skim over property and property owner, since I think with this crew, you're probably more interested in the details for the project. So this must be commercial and industrial, and that can include multifamily properties of 4 units or more, as well as property owned by as well as nonprofit entities, including houses of worship. This has to be an existing property. Melanie already mentioned this. This is available for the retrofit of existing properties, and new properties are not eligible at this time. And of course, they must be privately owned. As for the property owner, again, this is kind of pretty standard. They have to be the legal record owner. We need to know that they're current on mortgage and property tax payments, and that they're not in insolvent or in bankruptcy proceedings. So with all of this, really the idea is that the municipality, as the administrator, our role is to determine if the property owner, the property, and the project are eligible. And beyond that, we're kind of leaving it to the property owner, the developer and contractor, and the lender to try to figure out what the project, or to figure out what the project is. Thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the technical requirements, and these are all in the handbook on our website. And if you look at the handbook and it looks long, it's 50-some pages. The actual handbook is only about 15 pages, and the rest are exhibits that are a part of the application. So don't be overwhelmed. So first, property owners would need to hire an independent auditor for the audit of the facility. So this is a review of energy or emissions baseline conditions and the projected reduction in energy costs or consumption or demand. I think this group is probably pretty familiar with that. This needs to be a ASHRAE level 2 audit, and we have a list of eligible certifications within the handbook. So that audit, of course, will help determine the project scope. And usually the property owner, the capital provider, and the contractor kind of work with this together. Once that project scope is kind of developed, a certificate of eligible improvements is required from an independent energy auditor, and that certifies the eligibility of an improvement for a C-PACE financeable energy improvement project. So the level 2 audit does add costs to the project, but it helps the property owner better understand their options and develop the project scope. And again, we need to know that the savings are greater than the investment. So we need that energy audit. So this is a part of the state statute, and again, reduces risk to all parties. The certificate will include the calculation for the savings to investment ratio. And then I wanted to mention that the audit itself, while that has to be submitted to the property owner, that doesn't need to be submitted as part of the application. Lastly, the energy audit costs can be included in the financing as long as you still reach that SIR of at least 1. Number 4, once you've done the audit and determined the scope with the property owner has agreed on terms with the lender, then the application can be submitted, and that's when the program administrators will review it to make sure that it meets all of the eligibility requirements. Lastly, and this is again part of the independent contractor, once the project is complete, the auditor will provide verification that the project was properly completed and operating as intended. So I don't know if it sounds like a lot, but it's actually all pretty standard and I think makes sense once you look through it. So there are many opportunities for eligible improvements, and these are just some of them. This doesn't limit all the projects, but that it could include high efficiency lighting upgrades, new HVAC controls, variable speed drives on motors, fans, and pumps, high efficiency chillers, boilers, and furnaces, high efficiency water heating systems, combustion and burner upgrades, high efficiency commercial grade appliances and refrigerators or freezers, heat recovery and steam traps, building enclosures and envelope improvements, building management systems, and renewable energy systems. Okay, so this is a project that we just wanted to show as an example. This is the University Lofts, and this project is in Wisconsin. The improvements that were done on this building included interior and exterior lighting, exterior security lighting, code updates, outer walls, and insulation, windows. They did a new boiler and low flow fixtures and fixed appliances. And so they are expecting to save nearly $66,000 for a payback of 13.7 years. And so that's kind of standard, these longer term paybacks, again, so that the annual savings are paying for the loan. And I wanted to briefly touch on energy efficiency. I think this group probably most certainly knows all of this, but I'm curious if you're marketing it to your clients. Research shows that the #1 reason to take action on energy efficiency is actually for health and safety. People believe that efficient buildings are healthier, and that can be marketed. Employees are shown to be more productive in efficient buildings, and outdoor lighting, for example, makes people feel safer. According to the Anchorage Energy Landscape and Opportunities Analysis, it's conservatively estimated that cost-effective retrofits will result in savings of 20% and operations and maintenance savings of 5%. And that's in commercial buildings across the board in Anchorage. So again, maybe something to consider whether you're marketing that for your clients. We have one business that's talking to us that said, we're not comfortable with our boiler making it another year, so we need to take care of that. And then when they learned about C-PACE, they kind of thought, oh, well, we need a new roof soon, and that can count as energy efficiency because it will save us money. So now they're considering combining those projects and maybe looking at a C-PACE loan. So, that might be something to consider with some of your clients, that maybe they're looking at one thing, but there might be other energy efficiency projects that would fit into their scope. So something to consider as you market. And back to you, Sharon.
Hello, thank you everybody for being here today. And so I'm sure the burning question is, what are the fees? What does it cost? First of all, we have an application fee of $150 that is non-refundable. As you can see, the closing cost just depends on the amount of the project. And then we have an annual fee of 0.15% of the assessed value of the property. We have a specific page in our handbook and on our website specifically directed towards contractors, and you can find that handbook at www.muni.org/CPACE. for more information. And once you become a registered contractor, this is what the page will look like. In order to do that, then you will get an email saying that it was success, and you will get the little badge that you see at the top of the page for the registered contractor. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Melanie to finish us up.
Thank you, Sharon. And I'll also mention that once you submit your information will be posted on our website for property owners to contact you and see about your services. So there is an online spreadsheet from our website, as seen right there, that will indicate the information and what services you offer. And with that, that closes down the portion of content for this session. We've mentioned our website. Our email address is cpace@anchorageak.gov. We have a mailing list that we distribute information to, such as today's webinar, for anyone to share more broadly. And more importantly, we are very much wanting to hear what questions you might have, what benefits you've seen. Has anyone come to you and asked about C-PACE yet? Please tell us more. We are all ears. And thank you for the clarification on the fees there. Yes, it is 0.5% of the annual tax assessment.
Melanie, one thing we have talked about as we wait for any questions, and if there aren't any, that's great. That means we did our job and it's very clear. But one thing that we have talked about with some contractors is that we're happy to create materials if it will help you get the word out to your clients. Just let us know what is helpful. We do have some one-pagers on the website that Melanie mentioned. There's ones for property owners, for lenders, for mortgage holders. The mortgage holder does have to sign off on the lien because they're taking a subprime lien, so they're going to be bumped down a little bit. Typically, they're okay with this because they recognize the value of the project and recognize that the project savings will pay for the loan. Melanie, should I pass it back to you here?
Sure. We have a question from Chris asking, since he has currently different projects that are going through C-PACE, what is the timeline to complete the C-PACE process?
Well, we don't know yet. We haven't had an actual application yet. I imagine that in the beginning it will be a little slower, but I will say that we are eager to assist, especially in the first projects, because we really are excited to see successful projects go through C-PACE. And so Melanie, Sharon, and I are here for you, and will happily walk you through the process and be here, put a little extra time into these first ones. Anything you want to add to that?
No, that's about right. We've been working with different capital providers to make sure that they're up to speed. We're making ourselves available to all of you to be able to speed up that timeline process. So it is all very dependent on different parties, and we're doing our best to project manage and be the middle person so that it goes smoothly and is a great experience for all.
I should mention there is a 30-day window for the mortgage holder consent. So you have to, per the statute, give them 30 days to hopefully approve the mortgage holder agreement.
All right, Shayna, our next question is, are the program fees to be included in the overall project costs when determining what it pays for, when determining that it pays for itself over the loan term?
They can be, and actually, Melanie, as our finance expert, I'm going to kick this one to you because I think that you will probably handle it more smoothly.
Thank you, Shayna. Do program fees to be included in the overall project cost? Sorry, I'm rereading the question. It frankly depends on the capital provider, what they will allow to underwrite and not. So it depends, never the most satisfying answer, but it depends. All right, our next question from Gregory, which is a rather long one. Gregory, if you want to unmute yourself and ask it live, we welcome it as I read it and digest it.
Sorry about that.
No, please, go ahead.
I'll actually, as I apologize for it being so long, I'll see if I can make it a little more concise. Being a commercial energy auditor myself, but I'm also the vendor, the warranty agent, and the maintenance, for 20 years on the systems. A couple of things that maybe they're just specific to me. If you're just replacing HVAC motors, they're set. You put them in, they're going to operate the way they are. Often the auditors don't fully agree on the projected results. And I think someone else may run into that. If you're an expert in your specific technology, can you refute their findings? I'm just realizing as I'm asking you that maybe we don't have to. If there's a minimum it has to meet and both of our findings are within the minimum, then that's great. But for example, combined cooling, heat, and power systems can also be dialed in after they're put in. So they can be made more efficient even than they're projected to be based on the actual building use. And sometimes in folks that are in my same business, and there's a few of us out there, we suffer from an energy audit that tries to look into a crystal ball, whereas we need to put it in and also we can tweak it and make it even better. Okay, that wasn't shorter. I apologize.
Thanks for the question, Greg. That is a really good one. So it does have to be an independent energy auditor. So even though you're an energy auditor as well, if you're the vendor or contractor, the way the handbook is written, that needs to be an independent auditor. And I think the answer to that is, working with auditors on education for CHP systems, if they're consistently off, showing them how they actually are working, because it needs to go by the energy audit, and it's the energy audit that drives that savings to investment ratio.
I'll see if there are any other energy auditors on the call that have additional comments or thoughts on this. Please do chime in. Nope. Okay. Our next question from Jean is whether the municipality is prepared to incorporate C-PACE in their tax billing system. And thankfully the answer is yes. That was one of our elements as we were launching the program. And we've been working very closely with the property department to be able to incorporate it, and the billing folks as well. So that is happening pretty smoothly. Dean, I'm curious to know whether there's a reason for that question or any happenings that we should be aware of. If you either want to chat it or speak up.
And I'll just, hi Jean, I'll just say that Anchorage, as well as like the Mat-Su Borough and Fairbanks, already has a system for special assessments. In Anchorage, our software system is all done through the water and water treatment utility, AWU, but that system was actually a little too old to be able to handle C-PACE, and so they're upgrading that system. Since in the beginning, we expect to only have, a couple to a couple dozen projects. We're kind of doing this by hand, but as we go forward, the anticipation is that there's a couple of paths forward, but the AWU system is updated and then they can take on C-PACE loans. But it's actually fairly simple on our end. It's a once a year assessment that goes out, just like our property tax bill. And then we remit we keep the annual fee to offset our costs, and then we remit the correct portion to the lender. So it's not too complex.
Gene, anything to add?
No, thank you. When the legislation was introduced and going through the legislative process, the concern was raised by a number of the smaller utilities that their systems would just not be able to accommodate this, or it would require a huge system overhaul. I agree with you that as PACE starts more slowly, limited number of projects, it allows them that opportunity to work out any little bugs that may present themselves. But at the time, I didn't think it would be the huge hurdle that many of them thought it would be.
And ideally, in other states, what is kind of a common way to operate is there is a statewide or a regional administrator, and then cities can opt into it. I sure would love to see that. And in fact, the energy investment program was introduced last year by the governor. Something like that operates kind of as a green bank could potentially have C-PACE underneath it. In fact, a green bank is typically a pretty great umbrella organization or entity to operate C-PACE. At least it's what we've seen in the lower 48.
Thank you, Greg, for the kind words in the chat. We're pretty excited about this program and are really looking forward to it kicking off. We've had about 10-ish projects in the pipeline, one that actually has a term sheet that's been signed with a capital provider, and a couple of others that we're very hopeful for kicking off at some point soon. The three of us are here and available to answer all questions. Probably I've said that too many times now, but just want to make sure that that's loud and clear, since we know that there will be hiccups throughout the process, and we want to make sure that we're working out where are the holdups, where are the questions, what are the questions, and especially knowing that other municipalities and boroughs are looking to bring on this program so that we can de-risk it for others.
Yeah, hi, this is Amber McDonough. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, sorry for asking complex questions. I can clarify that question, but I had another question with regard to incorporation of O&M services. A lot of the upgrades that are discussed are not set and forget it. And so if a building owner does not maintain their boilers or their chillers, then that performance will decline over time. And I was wondering if there was any thought or conversation on how to ensure savings are made year after year.
That's a really good question. Per the statute and per the handbook, we don't require ongoing measurement and verification or performance M&V. And so, you know, that's something that if I'm a property owner, I think it's kind of on them to be watching their energy use. And I know that that's not something that they're good at. We can also recommend recommissioning, but it's not required as part of this program.
Okay, so the risk would be on the owner to ensure that they make the savings.
Yeah,
yep.
That's correct.
And the basis of the program is that their energy savings are what are helping repay their loan. So if they're not seeing the energy savings anymore, there might be some incentive for them to look at their energy bill to make sure that they are getting those savings to be able to pay their loan.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Amber, it looks like the question in the chat is actually a little bit different to that question, right?
Yeah, the question in the chat had to do with the process of reviewing projects. And I think you've put the onus on the independent auditor to determine if the project will pay for itself over the term of the loan. And so my question was, with the reoccurring program fees, I believe it's 0.5% of the annual tax assessment amount versus the annual assessment of the entire building, which would be a lot. My question was, would the independent auditors incorporate these fees into their cash flow models?
They can. So if the property owner is interested in rolling those costs into the total financing package, it still has to hit that savings to investment ratio of at least 1. So they're going to be looking for a higher savings to investment ratio on the project scope so that they can kind of have some wiggle room for those added costs.
Okay, but if they didn't want to finance those fees and just pay for them up front, they wouldn't. I guess the question is to the program managers yourselves, are you going to look to see if those fees are included before approving a project? Or are you just going to look at project costs and say, okay, the savings pay for the actual physical project costs over the term?
I think it doesn't really matter to us whether those are included or not, as long as they meet those eligibility requirements of an SIR of at least 1 in the 20-year or life of the project scope. Does that answer your question, or am I kind of off track?
I think you're saying you're flexible in how it's shown, but I also think you're saying that, you know, if a project is marginal and they're not including the fees as part of the overall assessment, that's okay, because they're not, most building owners, I think, won't finance those fees.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
They'll end up paying more over time, so they'll probably just pay that independently, and it won't be included in your assessment of project viability. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, and I'll that is what I'm saying. Thank you. And I'll add that we have been working with experts who work to develop project or PACE programs, and in their experience from what they've seen, they also have an arm that does financing. These are some of the lowest fees in the country that they've seen, but we really wanted to keep them low in order to encourage participation. And we believe that these fees can offset our costs. That could change in the future as we assess how much time it takes us to do this and what the costs are to the municipality so that they are offset.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Amber.
Yeah, I did have one other question, but I don't want to dominate the conversation. So if someone else has questions, I did have one more about a financing question.
Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. It looked like it was mentioned that these were non-recourse loans. Normally I hear that language when we're talking about public entities so that they can borrow year over year and not have to worry about appropriations. I was curious what the interpretation was when we're talking about private owners and what non-recourse, how that benefits them, if someone could speak to that.
Melanie, do you want me to take it?
Sure, go for it.
Okay, my understanding, because I am not the finance expert in the room, is that non-recourse means that the loan is tied to the project itself, not the property owner and not the greater asset.
Okay. So upon default, they could not come after the property owner. Something to that
upon default, it actually would be handled in the exact same way that any other default or delinquency is handled. So C-PACE assessments, their prior impairment to all other liens. And so the municipality would enforce any delinquent assessment payment against the property for the benefit of the capital provider in the same manner as the property tax lien against the real property would be enforced by a local government.
Gotcha. So it's just like them defaulting on their taxes and being in arrears on that. That makes sense.
Correct.
Okay.
Perfect. And there are, gosh, I wish, hang on, I have this information really right here. So I just want to mention that while this is, innovative, it's not new. Right now, 37 states and DC have enabled C-PACE legislation, and nationwide, over $2 billion has been invested through over 2,500 commercial projects. And in a review of these projects, there was found to be no default as a result of C-PACE ever in the lower 48. The programs are still fairly new. I think some of the older programs were passed back in like 2007. So to say that there are none, that's still really good. But it's not like this has been around for decades and we know that these are great projects, but these are buildings that have done due diligence to make sure they're operating efficiently and effectively. And so I think by that respect, probably are ones that have a better chance of staying afloat.
Yep, that's good to hear.
Yeah, it's encouraging.
What other resources or support can we provide as the program administrator so that you all feel supported and confident in talking about it sufficiently to then direct a client to our website? Great. I guess we've done our job then. And we'll follow up with all of you with that have registered. Amber's question is what the customers will have. Yes, I think Greg, you're spot on.
And we did also develop a FAQ, which some of these questions are on, but if we're getting these questions, multiple times, then we'll make sure to add those to them, because we really do want to make this very clear.
And in terms of capital providers, we've had Northrum locally sign on with C-PACE and starting to bring on projects. Otherwise, the other local folks haven't wide signed on, but nationwide PACE groups or PACE loan groups, such as the one we talked about earlier, are very knowledgeable and savvy about C-PACE and have been helping us guide property owners through the process. Some of them have their own energy auditors and contractors that they work with, but we've been highly encouraging them to use local workforce since one of the goals of this program is to increase local jobs and keep the money locally in Alaska, since goodness knows we need it. But we are very happy to handhold property owners and any clients of yours through the process to make sure that they're comfortable with it. I see a couple of folks are unmuted. Were there questions? I guess not. Great. Well, with that, hearing crickets, thank you all for joining today. We were so glad to meet all of you, and we hope we'll follow up with more resources and links for you to look at, particularly the contractor registration form, which we hope to see all of your names on very soon. And feel free to reach out to us. There'll be one of the three of us answering your emails if you reach out to the C-PACE email address. Go to our website, let us know what we're missing. We are very happy to provide it, and we hope that all of you will be part of making this program successful. Thank you all for joining today.
Thank you.
Thank you.